When my light-skinned Caucasian wife told me her principal offered her a promotion in exchange for a weekend at his lake house, I didn't get angry. I started gathering proof that would destroy him.
I still remember the hollow sound of Laura S.'s voice when she first told me what he'd done. She stood in our kitchen, her hands trembling, eyes red like she'd been holding back tears for hours. He said I could be department head. If I spent the weekend at his lake house, that one sentence cracked. Something inside me, something fragile and furious all at once. Lavra wasn't just dealing with a sleazy principal. She was dealing with a predator who wore authority like armor. And he had no idea he'd just started a war. We lived a simple, decent life. A modest 3-bedroom house, weekend barbecues, the kinds of routines that bring quiet joy. Lavra had taught English at Roosevelt High for over a decade. Her classroom was always filled with laughter and stacks of books she insisted would turn any teenager into a reader. She loved teaching. She flourished there. Then John Richards arrived. To outsiders, he was charming, magnetic, and confidently polished. But Lavra saw past the shine from day one. He's got used car salesman ethics, she'd joke. I didn't think much of it. Principals rotate, right? I learned how wrong I was on that grim October evening. She downed whiskey like it was water and told me everything. How Richards had praised her talents, hinted at advancement, and then slid his real offer across the table like a filthy bribe. A weekend at his lake house. Team building, he'd called it. When she reminded him she was married, he just smirked and said, "I'm not asking you to divorce him." I wanted to storm his house and drag him out by his perfectly styled hair. But Lavra grabbed my arm and whispered, "Please, don't make it worse." I knew immediately Richards wasn't the kind of man who backed off. He was the kind who punished. 3 days later, punishment arrived as a formal disciplinary meeting with a title that made my stomach drop: Inappropriate Student Relationship. Lavra was accused of misconduct with Max Dennison, one of her students. A smart kid from a tough background, the kind of student Lavra always helped. They twisted her mentorship into something sinister, disgusting, and completely fabricated. When she walked out of that meeting clutching a folder full of fake text messages and false student statements, something inside me hardened. They had manufactured everything. They suspended her without pay. Richards wasn't just retaliating. He was destroying her. I made a decision that day. We were going to fight. Hard. Our first lead was Max. He revealed Richards had questioned him weeks earlier, trying to make their normal interactions sound suspicious. Then Max told me something crucial. Richards had tried to coerce another kid, Brandon, into signing statements in exchange for clearing his record. I tracked down Brandon at his grandmother's apartment. He was hesitant but honest. Richards had pressured him to lie, but he'd refused. "Miss Davis is the only teacher who doesn't treat me like trash," he said. I wasn't signing crap. I didn't expect help from anywhere else, but help came. Diane Hoffman from the Teachers Union arrived at our home. She listened to everything and promised that corrupt administrators were not going to bury my wife. But the person who turned everything on its head was the school's IT guy, Paul. Nervous and constantly checking over his shoulder, he handed me a flash drive. "Richards records everything," he whispered. "He uses it for leverage. There's stuff on here you should hear." That night, I sat at my computer and listened. What I heard made my blood run cold. In one recording, Richards propositioned Lavra about the lake house smoothly, confidently, unmistakably. In another, he threatened her career. And in a third, he conducted the disciplinary meeting, his voice dripping with false concern as he suspended her based on fabricated evidence. Everything was there. Everything we needed. But Richards had already gone to the superintendent, painting Lavra as an unstable teacher making up stories. Then came the escalation. Fake messages thrown across our lawn. Neighbors staring, Lavra sobbing. It felt like we were drowning. But the tide shifted when Max and his mother visited, promising to stand with Lavra. Soon, other parents stepped forward. And then Brandon returned with a recording he'd secretly taken of Richards threatening to have his grandmother evicted if he didn't sign new fabricated statements. The fear in that kid's voice broke my heart. His courage lit a fire. We now had an arsenal. The next school board meeting was a spectacle. The room was packed with angry parents, teachers, and reporters. Max spoke first. Brandon played his recording. A former teacher from Richard's old school revealed his history of harassment. Then I stood before the board, held up the flash drive, and said, "This contains his proposition to my wife, his retaliation, and his fabricated evidence." "This is what he has done," Richard slammed the table, yelling about slander, but the board called an immediate closed session. An hour later they returned. Richards was gone. Lavra was cleared of all wrongdoing and reinstated the next morning with full back pay. The district launched an investigation, uncovering years of buried complaints. He resigned in disgrace. His license was reviewed. More victims came forward. 6 months later, Lavar became department head on merit, not manipulation. That night, we sat on our back porch under the stars. "When I said no to him," she whispered, "I thought I was ending my career." "You were starting a revolution," I whispered back. She laughed softly. "We did it, didn't we?" "No," I said, kissing her forehead. "You did." "I just refused to let him silence your no." Richard's thought power made him untouchable. He never expected we'd fight back. He never expected a community to rise behind her. He never expected the truth to be louder than his threats. Some men confuse power with dominance, but real power comes from people who refuse to be afraid. Lavarfa said no. And together we made sure the world heard it.